Welcome back to our SeniorFlix segment here. We're taking our time to talk to Pastor Ron and get to know him a little bit. So Pastor Ron, here we're back again. Thank you for sharing the concept about the third place with us in our last segment. Right now, I would love you to talk about some of these props that are here on our table. Like, I think they might be some telling tales of little glimpses into your life. Would you like to tell us what, can we look at this mystery photo?
Sure.
Yes? Okay, so I see two children here. Tell us about who they are.
Let me see here. That's my brother and I, and we're just, goodness, I'm just a little infant almost, and he was a year and a half older than me. We're at my grandfather's, and I don't remember the moment. Obviously, at that age, it's a little bit of a challenge. My brother was my hero. And I'll tell you, when I started in school, back then, when you moved to a new school, you sometimes got picked on, right? Like they wanted to see what you were all about, and can you stand up for yourself, or whatever the case was. And I remember my first couple of days in school, in grade 1. The boys there in the class decided they were going to sort of bully me, and I remember going up to the grade 1 class door, knocking on the door to see if I could get the teacher to help. Back then, I think teachers sort of often just let whatever happened in the schoolyard happen, and so there was about 4 or 5 of the boys who had grabbed a hold of me, and so I punched one of them in the nose, and started his nose bleeding. Of course, all the others, they were going to really lay into me at that point. All I remember is, all of a sudden, they went flying, and I remember someone out of the corner of my eye grabbing one by a shirt tail and just throwing him, and cleared them all out. That was my older brother, and so they pretty much left us alone after that. And he was my hero. We did a lot of things together, and we were pretty much all together. We used to hitchhike back when we were in public school. We would hitchhike from Aylmer and go down to Port Bruce, and we. When we got a little older, sometimes we skipped school and just took off for the day and went to the London Fair or wherever it might be. But I remember my brother really being sort of that person who sort of looked after me. And I remember he really had a sensitive spot in his heart for God. More so than I did. He would challenge me to get up for Sunday school, and we didn't often go a lot. My mother really tried, but Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas, they'd get us to, but in between, my brother would like to go. I'd take my white shirt, throw it under the bed, and say, my shirt's dirty, or I can't find it, and I've got a headache. But he's the one who actually sort of got to the camp at Manitoulin and sort of first into the church. But as we were growing up, we experimented with different things before we got to the church. And you might notice here, this what is that?
It looks like a horse tray.
Yes.
And I'm curious to know the story behind this.
What kind of a tray?
A coin tray?
Well, it could be, and it is more that now than it used to be, but that's an ashtray. And that used to be at my grandfather's. Back then, my grandfather smoked cigars, and pipe, and my uncle as well. And so my brother and I would often sneak some of the pipes and tobacco. And I do remember one time we couldn't find any tobacco, and I mean we're in grade 6, grade 7, and we filled it. I remember filling the pipe with chaff. Do you know what chaff is? Chaff is the outer barrier, the protective barrier on the grain of barley or wheat. And you don't eat that, so you husk it and you take that off, and there's often chaff in the mouth and so on. So we stuffed our pipes full of that and lit the thing and it puffed in. Well, it was fire. It actually wasn't like tobacco. The whole thing went right down my throat and made me sick as a dog. And I don't know that I ever. I think that was it for the pipes back then. And the tobacco, couldn't find real tobacco anyway. It didn't taste good. Didn't like it. Sort of quit smoking when I was around 12. But my brother and I did a lot of fun things together. We used to go hunting together, and then he was killed in a car accident. And I was a pastor at the time, and I got the phone call. I was 25 years old, and I got the phone call that there's been a terrible accident and your brother's been killed. And probably one of the worst moments of my life. And he was, like I said, around 27 years old, a year and a half older than me. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. I had to get up and I had to go down to the morgue in Woodstock to identify him. And my dad had been in an accident a month or so earlier, and he was on the 3rd floor of the hospital in traction still, and I had to go from the morgue and go up and tell my brother. And so you imagine, this hero in your life is gone. And I was really upset with God, and I thought, okay, God, why? And I wondered at that point, where is my brother? You'll often hear pastors say, well, God told me this and God told me that. It's not a phrase I use very often. I will often use the phrase, I've been reading and I felt impressed that God might like me to do this or that. But the definitive God told me, I am very, very careful about, because sometimes it can actually be just the pizza, that you had late at night, or just your imagination. And I don't like taking God's name in vain. But that morning on the way to the hospital, it was almost as if there was an audible voice that said to me, wow, even touch obviously impacts me now. It was, Ron, you know me, trust me. And I've never had a moment of doubt as to where my brother might be. He's with God, and I believe that thoroughly. And God sort of witnessed to my heart, you can trust me, and my mercy is great. And the sacrifice of Christ has covered for not only my sins, but his. And even though he found it really difficult to thrive in the church, and he struggled with alcohol and so on, it never changed that tender spot in his life, and the desire to know God and honor him. So that was a difficult time in my life. So that ashtray was my grandfather's and my uncle's after my grandfather died. That was on the farm where we grew up as kids. And we spent the weekends there at my grandmother's farms and the summers together. We played in the haymow. We climbed up the outside of the silos, and we all kinds of mischievous stuff, including pushing a buggy up the hill and getting in there, pulling the guard rails, the thing that guided the horse up, and we rode that buggy with binder twine steering it all the way down, no brakes, went through the gate and hit the fence at the end. We had a lot of fun together, but that's a safe place. That ashtray ended up at my brother's, and I have his pipe and his ashtray. Meaningful for me.
Wow, Pastor Ron, thank you for sharing that. What a rich bond you had with your brother.
Yeah.
And to lose him was probably so painful.
Yes.
And God came through and speaking to you so tangibly.
Right. It redefined the way that I pastored, and the empathy that I had for people in loss. But thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ron. I feel like you opened your heart and let us into your most cherished memories and vulnerable spaces as well. Thank you for doing that for us today. We still want to talk more to you, so we will continue that in our next segment. Please join us in our next talk with Pastor Ron.
Thank you.